Hosted games. Search. Back. Details. Heading. The Parenting Simulator. Heading. By Matt Simpson. Button. Add favorite. Button. 4.7 stars out of 5. 4,504 ratings. Try now. Button. Purchase $5. Restart. Button. Restore purchases. Button. This is a story where you do something more terrifying than entering a haunted house, more dangerous than assaulting an alien horde, and more important than ruling a fantasy kingdom. You, and you alone, must turn your newborn baby into a functional adult. Will you be a tiger mom or a helicopter dad? Can you raise a child through 18 years of humor and heartache with nothing on your side except a little patience and a lot of love? It's a fun and unique experience designed for potential parents of all ages. Restore. Restart. Purchase 5. Try now. Button. In the Parenting Simulator. Heading Level 1. By Matt Simpson. Heading. The magic moment. So, it happened. After 9 months of waiting that definitely had its share of ups and downs, you are the proud owner of a screaming, crying, red-faced thing. Not a person. Not yet. But it is the seed from which a person will one day sprout. Shortly after the chaos has ended and the first feeding has led into a first nap, you peek at the sleeping form wrapped in a heavy hospital blanket. It is utterly amazing that everything you've been planning, longing for, dreading, hoping, and fearing has culminated in 7.5 pounds of baby. You look at that hospital blanket encircling your offspring. What color is it? Pink, like her nursery. Radio button. Checked. 1 of 4. Blue, like the sheets on his crib. Radio. I can tell, and prefer to let chance decide. Radio button. Unchecked. You know hospitals don't really give out different colored blankets based on baby gender, right? Radio button. Unchecked. Next. Button. Your little girl coos and shifts, but does not wake. Yawning, you decide to join your little one in slumber. You slide into blissful sleep, and stay there for all of an hour before a high-pitched squawk rouses you. You stagger upright with a grumble, and go to the tiny bed next to you. Eyes that look remarkably familiar stare back for a moment. A split second later, the little face scrunches up for another shout. You know it's not time for another feeding yet, so what can you do to help her get back to sleep? Sing a song. Radio button. Checked. 1 of 3. Rock 'em around the clock. Radio button. Change the diaper, just in case. Radio button. Unchecked. Next. Button. And what tune will soothe this savage beast? A standard lullaby. Gotta go with tried and true. Radio button. Checked. 1 of whatever pop song was on the radio this morning. Radio button. Unchecked. 2 of 3. Checked. Nothing calms babies quite like the power of metal. Radio next. Button. You belt out the first ditty that rises unbidden to your mind, which means your child's first experience with the wondrous phenomenon of music is your off-key rendition of an obscure Madonna tune. Fortunately, it seems to work well enough, and soon you're both back in La La Land once more. The night passes in much the same fashion, a blur of feeding, soothing, and tiny wet diapers that already seem a lot less cute than they were before you were wrapping them around the baby's hindquarters at 3 a.m. You sit bleary-eyed in the morning, feeding your child as you stare blankly at the wall. There's a cheerful message left for you and your little lady on the room's small whiteboard by the night nurse that catches your eye. It says, "Welcome to the world, baby." Elizabeth, radio button, checked. 1 of 9. Caitlin, radio button, unchecked. Felicia, radio button, unchecked. Amanda, radio. Denise, radio. Isabella, radio. Jennifer, radio. Fiorella, radio. None of these. Radio but next button. You know it's one of a dozen identical messages in this hospital at the moment, but seeing Elizabeth in print does pep you up a bit. At least enough to get through the feeding so that both of you can pass out for a mid-morning nap. You're roused some indeterminate amount of time later by loud crying. Elizabeth's wails are more pronounced than before, and you soon determine why. She has generated the much-anticipated first poop. She continues to scream as you wipe away the terry meconium, and you do your best to sound soothing as you whisper SSHSHSH. It's okay, I'm here. Dada is here. Radio button, checked. Mama is here. Radio button, unchecked. Checked. Next button. Next button. You replace the diaper and run a show stats button. You replace the diaper and run a finger along Elizabeth's chubby cheek. Mama loves you, little one. It seems to do the trick, and she settles down again. Elizabeth stares at you with quiet intensity, and you can't help but feel odd that she belongs to you now. And you belong to her too, in a way. Discharge time comes, and Elizabeth is healthy enough, and chubby enough, to earn both of you a ticket home. You have detached the car seat from its base to bring inside, and your new arrival is dozing inside a mass of straps and padding. On the TV, the last of the mandatory parenting videos has drawn to a close, leaving the room eerily quiet. An orderly comes in with a clipboard, requiring your signature in order to finalize the discharge. You write your first name. Text field. Double next button, text field. Double tap to edit. Next button, text field. Insertion point at end. Cap X, Cap Z. Selected, Shift. Cap L, Cap K, Cap J, Cap H, Cap G. Golf. Cap F, Cap D, Cap S, Cap A. Alpha. Cap P, Cap O, Cap O, Cap E, X, Z, Shift, L, K, J, H, G, space, delete, M, N, B, V, R, E, R, T, Y, space, E, V, go. Go, and then your last name. Text field. Double tap to edit. Insertion point at end. Toolbar. Next. Cap F. Foxtrot. Cap F. Cap D. S A P O I U Y T R E R T Y U U C V B N N N T R T Y Y space funny. Go. Oh, that's it. You secure the car seat, load up your various baby paraphernalia, and depart from Elizabeth's place of birth. It will be great to introduce Elizabeth to her new home. An apartment in the city. Radio button. Checked. 1 of 3. A modest suburban house. Radio button. Unchecked. 2 of 3. Checked. A house out in the country. Radio button. Next button. Next chapter. Next chap. You sneak a peek in your rear view. Your lawn is the size. Details. Your lawn is the size of a postage stamp, but at least the fenced-in backyard will give her a safe place to play. And she's sure to find some friends among the 30 other near-identical houses in your subdivision, right? You sneak a peek in your rear view at the top of your sleeping child's head and wonder what lies in store for your new family. It might be a little tough for the two of you out there on your own, but you know you can handle it. Next chapter, button. Year 0, the art of interpreting screams. Next, button. You realize early on that there's a reason You realize early on that there's a reason babies are so irresistibly cute. It's a defense mechanism to prevent their caregivers from abandoning them to the elements. Your will and endurance are severely tested during the first year, but you also create cherished memories you know will remain with you all of your days. It's the beginning of an amazing and frustrating journey, as you mold Elizabeth while she changes you in ways you could never expect. There are a few situations that definitely leave an indelible mark on your time as a parent. While reading, would you prefer to have some events randomly selected for a slightly shorter and more unpredictable experience, or play through all available events in this story in a single run? I want it all, and I want it now. Show all available events. Radio button. Checked. Keep me guessing. Randomize it. Radio button. Unchecked. 2 of. Next button. The sedan departs from your driveway, and in the process nearly collides with a minivan trying to pull in. You check the fridge and make sure there's a fresh supply of cold drinks, put a smile on your face, and wait at the door for the next wave of visitors. Before becoming a parent, like most people, you have visited a few newborns in your day. You drop in, chat for a bit with a tired mom and dad, ooh and ah over the tiny little person that has entered the world. What you never really considered is that while you were doing that, so was everyone else that they knew. Suffice to say, you're realizing it now. The arriving vehicle is Sharon, one of your co-workers, bringing along her own motley crew of 4 rambunctious younglings. What's your reaction when they pile out of the car and come to your door? I greet them warmly. It's great to have someone to talk to who can, talk back. Radio button. I welcome them, but make sure to have hand sanitizer at the ready. A couple of those kids look a trifle snotty. Radio button. Unchecked. 2. Checked. I sigh, then put on my game face and go through the motions. Radio button. Unchecked. I conjure up some fake coughs to try and scare them away. Radio. Next button. If your casual friend is offended by the insinuation that her children could infect your little one, she doesn't show it, and you line everyone up to receive a liberal helping of mint-scented gel as they enter your home. Elizabeth watches with wide eyes as the kids examine baby toys, sprawl onto chairs, and generally make themselves at home. The youngest, a pale waif who looks no more than 3, turns her wide eyes to you and asks if she can give baby Elizabeth a big baby squeeze hug. Of course, Elizabeth loves getting hugs from big kids. Radio button. Checked. 1. Because she's a baby, how about if you just touch her feet instead? Radio button. Unchecked. 2. Checked. Just to be safe, why don't you blow her a kiss? That would be a hard pass, kid. You. Next button. That would be a hard pass, kid. You look like a paragon of pestilence. Radio button. Unchecked. Next button. Next button. The preschooler seems. Show stats. The preschooler seems a trifle forlorn at this downgrade of acceptable affection, but Elizabeth smooths things over with a spittle-flecked smile at the young girl as she gently tugs on her bare tootsies. The good mood doesn't last, however, as the little girl is so enamored with baby feet she shows no sign of letting go. Elizabeth begins to kick her feet in frustration. Honey, Elizabeth is so glad you like her, but I think she wants you to let go now. Radio button. Checked. 1. I gently extricate Elizabeth from the death grip of love. Radio button. Unchecked. I attempt to get Sharon to call off her tiny cat hound. Radio button. I let her continue. She's not actually hurting Elizabeth. After all. Radio button. Next button. 13th percentile button. You watch the taillights through the window as she shakes her head. Show details. That show stats. She shakes her head, pigtails flapping. No, this my baby buddy. Fortunately, even Sharon is able to realize that line of thought can't be allowed to continue, and she intervenes. Petunia, let go of Elizabeth. I think she wants some space. Wonder of wonders, the girl listens, and Elizabeth instantly becomes more settled. This seems to also wake your colleague up to the fact that her older children have tired of playing with baby toys and moved on to hitting each other with baby toys, and she bundles up her family to head back to the van. You watch the taillights through the window as Sharon departs. You should have a whole hour to yourself until never mind. There's your second cousin Gladys pulling up now. Once more unto the breach, then. 13th percentile, button. You walk out of the pediatrician's office, clutching Elizabeth a bit too tightly, as if the winds might blow her away, and all you can think about is percentiles. Specifically, the one between 12 and 14. Another routine pediatric checkup has come around, and the jovial Dr. Commander was poking and prodding your offspring. Elizabeth was taking it all in stride, too busy smiling and burbling a Jew to pay the pediatrician any mind. Temperature, height, even head circumference were meticulously noted and studied. Everything seemed fine until he looked at his computer screen and dropped the bombshell. Ms. Funny, we're a little concerned with Elizabeth's weight this time around. She's only gained 3 ounces in the last month, which would put her at the 13th percentile for this age. Let's go ahead and schedule another appointment in 2 weeks, and if there hasn't been any improvement, we may need to discuss some more options. The rest of the visit passed in a fog, and now as you head to your vehicle and buckle your tiny child into the car seat, it feels like a weight is pressing down upon you. What can you do to solve something like this? Feedings around the clock. This child's going to get stuffed like a Thanksgiving turkey. Radio button. Checked. It's a little early, but if I introduce solid food, she should pack on the pounds. Radio button. Checked. Commander is always overreacting about something. I'm going to keep on like everything is normal. Next button. Your child is a few weeks out from the recommended age for adding in solids, but you don't want to see how far down her weight might go before that happens. You start slow, with a little oatmeal, but by the time of the follow-up appointment, she's moved on to some first-stage fruit jars and is having a ball. Of course, a lot of that is due to how many new avenues for mess creation this opens up for your little Jackson Pollock, but enough gets in the mouth that you hope for better results at the next visit. You're cautiously optimistic at the next doctor visit, stopping just short of hoping Elizabeth has a very wet diaper before getting on the scale to add an extra ounce or so. But it turns out not to be needed. The nurse confirms that she has gained more in the last 2 weeks than the entire month before that. The 22nd percentile might be low, but it's a darn sight better than 13th, so you're counting it as a win. You're still told to watch out for malnutrition or dehydration, but it's something of an anticlimax compared to what you dreaded you might hear. Dr. Commander smiles and gives you a knowing nod. Don't worry. I won't lie and say it's all downhill from here, but the older she gets, the less it should be an issue. Try not to beat yourself up when things like this arise. You look from the doctor to your child, who is trying to scooch off the examining table while you struggle with those interminable onesie snaps. I hope so. I'll be glad when Elizabeth finally gets a little older and stops making me worried for her safety every minute. There's something about the doctor's knowing, silent smile after that comment that unnerves you as you depart. Sleep struggles, button. Sleep struggles. Everyone warned you beforehand. Sleep now, they said with malicious glee, because you won't get any for the next couple years. But no amount of advanced knowledge could have prepared you for the savage reality of perpetual sleep deprivation. Multiple times a night, you are summoned by your incoherent overlord for a feeding, a wet diaper, or worst of all, for no apparent reason. There seems to be no limit to the torments Elizabeth unknowingly inflicts upon you. Her current sleeping arrangement up to this point has been in her crib at the other end of the house. Radio button. Checked. In a bassinet beside my bed. Radio button. Unchecked. Checked. In the bed beside me. Radio button. Next button. Next button. You've become so conditioned to roll over and scoop up Elizabeth at the first grunt or whimper that just hearing a baby cry when you're out and about makes your arms twitch. The constant barrage of wake-ups takes its toll, and once you're several months into your first year, it becomes apparent that something's gotta give. Now that Elizabeth is finally old enough to allow for sleep training, what are you going to do in order to take back the night? It's time to cut off late-night feedings cold turkey. Let's do cry it out. Radio button. Checked. 1 of 3. I will start a gradual step down of late-night feedings. Radio button. Unchecked. 2 of 3. Checked. Nothing needs to change. It might be hard, but she'll only be little ones. Radio button. Next button. Baby steps. Literally. Button. She smiles as she pulls on the It's harder on you as you begin. Show stats. But it's harder on you as you begin the agonizingly slow process of reducing feedings over the next few weeks, but it does allow you to avoid any horror show nights and hopefully spare Elizabeth a bit of discomfort. There's still a fair amount of crying as the last feeding goes away, and not all of it comes from your chubby offspring. But you relish the peaceful nights thereafter, even though the mornings still come far too soon. The improvement to sleep duration and quality allows you to feel at least moderately more human. You convey your gratitude to Elizabeth while she's enjoying tummy time one morning. You dangle a jangling cow toy over her head and smile. I think you might not get evicted after all, little bit. She smiles as she pulls on the bell-filled bovine dangling from your hand, not paying your words any mind. Baby steps. Literally, baby steps. It's been a couple months since Elizabeth started pulling up on things, using pure baby muscle to overcome the comical disproportions of an infant body long enough for a few moments of verticality before plopping back onto her diaper, cushioned rump. Lately, those moments have been turning into minutes, and she's wiggling her legs, longing for some forward momentum. How will you react to your child's drive for mobility? I cheer her on verbally while letting her figure it out for herself. Radio button. I reach out with my fingers to let her get some practice walking. Radio button. Unchecked. 2 of 4. Checked. I watch quietly while resisting the urge to give her a gentle shove back to the floor. Elizabeth, I watch quietly while resisting the urge to give her a gentle shove back to the floor. Elizabeth is growing up too fast. Radio button. I take this last opportunity to move everything of value onto a higher shelf. Radio button. Unchecked. 4 of 4. Checked. Next button. There, you already baby-proofed the house some time ago, softening all those nasty corners and hard surfaces with gaudy padding and slapping a lock on every doorknob and cabinet. But now that walking is a real possibility and not some intangible future concept, it's time to really batten down the hatches. The TV is taken from its wobbly stand and mounted on the wall. Picture frames, vases, and the chunky glass board you won at work all relocate to areas well above the 3-foot danger zone near the floor. All the while, Elizabeth watches your burst of activity from your unsteady position near the coffee table. If you didn't know better, you would swear she's a trifle bummed at all the future shenanigans you've tried to prevent. There are a couple of other close calls over the weekend where Elizabeth is quite close to unassisted walking, but she always falls short in a very little fashion. You go back to work on Monday, well aware that you could get the call at any time letting you know that she's joined the ranks of the fully mobile. No such call arrives, however. Tuesday passes in a similarly stepless fashion. On Wednesday, your phone rings, and when you see the number of Elizabeth's daycare, you have a sinking suspicion that the subject of this call is exactly what you've been dreading. I let it go to voicemail. I can't handle knowing I missed it. Radio button, checked, 1 of 3. I pick it up and immediately say, if Elizabeth took her first steps, I don't want to know. Radio button, I answer like normal. No sense getting so overhyped about Elizabeth walking, she'll kinda be doing it a lot, after all. Radio button, unchecked. Checked, next, button. You casually answer the phone and are told exactly what you expected, that Elizabeth has now officially taken her wobbly first steps while you were away. It tugs a bit at the old heartstrings, but you're not the type to get too hung up on maudlin sentiment. A video of the milestone is sent your way, and you watch it on your break. Now you'll have to determine whether this merits a lot of hype and rigmarole when you come home, or if you should just treat it like business as usual. I take Elizabeth out for a big dinner at her favorite restaurant. Radio button, checked. I reward her with a fancy new toy. Radio button, unchecked. Checked. I just praise her and leave it at that. Radio button, next, button. The year draws to a close. Despite the fuss you've made, you and Elizabeth spent some time that night online shopping, and you let her browse through some options. At first, Elizabeth has her heart set on an elaborate Lego set, pointing to it over and over and babbling. But once you filter for more age-appropriate choices, she fixates upon a stuffed armadillo, which you ultimately add to the virtual cart and purchase. Not a typical choice, but then Elizabeth is not a typical child, right? Despite the fuss you've made, you know that Elizabeth still doesn't really understand what a game changer this will be. But you do, and you feel a mix of pride and apprehension when you think of where Elizabeth's newly empowered feet will be taking her going forward. The year draws to a close. Button. The whirlwind first year of your time as a parent comes to a close with a smash. Specifically, 2 tiny hands smooshing into a helpless piece of cake and smearing it all over the high chair while the assembled onlookers cheer. You snap a few pictures of the notable, if messy, milestone in between chatting with a couple of your friends and other nearby guests. Elizabeth is in rare form for the start of the festivities, charming her constituents with giggles and shouts. Overstimulation and an eye-popping amount of sugar from the smashed cake do eventually take their toll, leading her to get a little manic. By the time the last partygoers depart, Elizabeth has her head buried in your shoulder, sobbing softly as you get her ready for an afternoon nap. It seems as appropriate an end as any you can think of for your first year together. Good night, little sugarmonger, button. Good night, next chapter, button. Mama. Details, back, show as you lay her down and turn on the sound machine, you hear a plaintive mama, from behind you. You wait for another, but apparently it was all the little fighter had left. She has already given up the ghost and fallen asleep. Mama. It's not the first time Elizabeth has said it. She started babbling out a few words last month. Mostly just hi, yes, and cat, but sometimes she slips a mama in there too. You've been so used to just thinking of yourself as Evie that it'll be a bit of an adjustment to accept that you have a new title. One you'll likely hear more than your actual name in the years to come. Next chapter, button. Year 1, on the move. Getting to know you, button. Getting to know you. You look forward to the time you get to spend with your little one every weekend, but this one is extra special. You'll be joining a mommy and me play group held every Saturday morning. Socialization, with real adults. The fact that they're likely in the same boat as you is icing on the cake, as you could use advice from people who are doing these things now, as opposed to those who last had to change a diaper when Reagan was president. You snap Elizabeth into the car seat and drive to the county library, with Elizabeth helpfully pointing out bird, every few seconds, whether or not one is currently visible. Once you're inside, you become overwhelmed by the sheer scope of the carnage unfolding in the library's common room. Nearly 24 other parents, mostly moms but with a dad or two scattered amongst them, are either huddled together talking in ones and twos or attempting to corral their children from fleeing, assaulting one another, or fleeing after assaulting one another. I wade into the center of the fray and start introducing myself. Radio button, check. I take Elizabeth to the periphery of the group to play together quietly. Radio button, unchecked. I unleash Elizabeth to play on her own while I hang back and watch. Radio button, unchecked. I turn tail and run away from this madhouse. Radio button, next, button. You're no wallflower, and have no intention of raising one either. So you hoist up your progeny and casually step over a couple of marker-wielding moppets to approach the knot of parents in the middle of the room. Conversation is hard to come by, however, the stylish and somewhat cold group of adults exchanges casual pleasantries with you but are more interested in what each other has to say than you, or for that matter their own children. Before you can throw another witty remark into the mix to try and thaw them out, Elizabeth sees an unattended owl plush on the other side of the room and makes a beeline for it. You excuse yourself and take off after her. A quick glance back confirms that no one seemed to even notice your departure. You bend down to talk to her about running off when you hear someone above you. You stand up, but before you can say anything, the other parent smiles, grabs your hand, and gives it a shake. Hi, you look to be new here. Hope you're not scared off by all the hubbub. I'd say it's normally not like this, but I would be lying. She removes her hand and points to herself. I'm Tiffany Wilkerson, the mama of little Erica there. Erica, say hello. Tiffany gestures to the wide-eyed child sitting near yours, who waves for a moment, grunts hi, then resumes stomping all over the carpeted savannah with her stuffed elephant. Is there any sort of organized activity that'll happen here? Radio button, checked. What's the deal with the snooty folk near the main table? Radio button, how long have you been coming here? Radio button, unchecked. 3. Checked. Next, button. Next. Details, back, show, Tiffany laughs. Ever since Erica turned 1, so about 6 months ago. It's lots of fun, and gives you a chance to talk to someone who responds with more than a grunt and a glare. A quick calculation shows that your new acquaintance's child is just a few months older than Elizabeth. The other parent gestures toward Elizabeth and Erica. Hey, it looks like Erica and your little one really get along great. Screen recording in progress, 8:23 a.m. Tiffany laughs. The two children are playing with stuffed animals approximately 4 feet apart. Neither has acknowledged the other or even made eye contact as near as you can tell. In what way? Radio button, checked. One of, sure, if you say so. Radio, I think the marker fumes in here must be a little strong for you. They haven't even looked at each other. Radio button, next, button. There, Tiffany chuckles. Well, they haven't smacked each other in the face or snatched away a toy, so that's better than par for this course. Besides, kids this age never really play together. Just sort of parallel. You smile and nod, then point to yourself. I'm Evie Funny. This little nut is Elizabeth. Glad she's found a parallel pal, then. The children continue that not really together form of playing together until the actual activities start, and stay fairly close even during the story and craft times. On the way out, you exchange contact information with Tiffany and set up a playdate for next weekend. Elizabeth even surprises you by shouting an unsolicited bye-bye to Erica as you depart from the library. There's something about Tiffany and her carefree attitude that resonates with you, and you're quite glad you braved the kitty maelstrom today. Having someone else to talk to about the ups and downs will hopefully provide a few more of the former and help moderate the latter. Going, gone, button. Next, button. It wasn't a surprise that Elizabeth walking led to a lot of complications. That shattered candy dish, the time she snagged your car keys and threw them in the toilet, and of course, the impressive collection of scabs and bruises that adorn her knees at all times. Only now, after a few months of increasingly stable scurrying, is it apparent that the biggest issue is not what she can get but where she can go. Specifically, Elizabeth is everywhere, and you're having an increasingly difficult time corralling her. What's the best method to save your little kamikaze from herself? Baby gates, radio button, checked. The front door is locked and our home is BAB-approved. So I'm not too worried. Radio button, unchecked. I am the best method. Helicopter mama always swoops in to save the day. Radio button, unchecked. Cap, I am the best method. Helicopter mama always swoops in. Next, button. Your home is an increasingly complex labyrinth of lattice work barriers designed to prevent tidal or excursions. You have to tread lightly to avoid tripping, but it does the trick of keeping Elizabeth away from dangerous hazards like stairs, and the washing machine, and the refrigerator, and her own bedroom. Okay, so you might have gone a bit overboard with the last one, but better extremely safe than sorry, right? It's the grocery store that finally forces it to all come to a head. Elizabeth is by your side as you grab a shopping cart near the entrance, but when you go to scoop her up and put her in the seat area, you realize she's made a beeline for the doors instead. Your child cackles as she tries to head back out to the busy parking lot. I drop everything and sprint after her. Radio button, checked. What? I scream for someone to help. Radio button, unchecked. Next, button. Next, button. You lunge after Elizabeth, your heart pounding in your chest. It's a good thing you tend not to give Elizabeth too much slack in public places, or she might have been too far away to catch in time. Despite her head start, you manage to snag Elizabeth by the arm just as she nears the edge of the curb. You might have pulled a muscle in your calf from that impromptu sprint, but that's the least of your concerns right now. Elizabeth looks up at you, clearly shocked at the chain of events she set off with her mad sprint for the door. I wrap Elizabeth up in a hug. I'm too relieved to be mad. Radio button, checked. Elizabeth is about to get the talking to of her life. Radio button, unchecked. 2 of 3. I give Elizabeth a swift smack on the rear for such a blatantly dangerous decision. Radio button, next, button. Next. You smother the child in affection while repeating to her, you can never do that again, honey. You scared mama half to death. You hear an older voice in the crowd that grumbles at the scene. No wonder the little runt ran off, clearly doesn't get any proper discipline. Given that you have inadvertently become the most interesting thing in the room for the dozen or so witnesses of this mere tragedy, you weigh whether it's worth sticking around to shop or not. I ignore the looky-loos and go about my business. I still need animal crackers and diapers, after all. Radio button, checked. Nuts to this, we'll just go home and order what we need online. Radio button, unchecked. Checked. I confront those judging me and tell them what I think of it. Radio button, unchecked. Next, button, next, button. Cheeks burning at the show stats. Cheeks burning at the attention. You decide to go home and deal with Elizabeth's new behavior issue instead of being silently, or somewhat less than silently, judged by a bunch of randos at the store. If Elizabeth wanted her animal crackers now instead of 2 days from now, she shouldn't have embarrassed you like that. Once you get home from the store, you finally begin to unclench a bit. Elizabeth has long ago forgotten what happened, which doesn't make you feel any better. What steps can you take to make sure that her first time trying to run into traffic is also her last? I'll keep a tighter rein on her wherever we go from here on out. Radio button, checked. I'll get a little rein on her by purchasing a leash. Radio button. Unchecked. I deal with issues as they arise, but don't impose permanent limitations. Radio button. Unchecked. Next button. You assume that she can't run if she's always within arm's reach, and this proves fairly accurate. Anytime that it even looks like Elizabeth will bolt, you clamp down hard. Of course, some of those times, Elizabeth insists that she was just scratching an itch or swatting a bug. Or, breathing. But you aren't taking any chances. A smothered child is a living child, after all. Despite Elizabeth's best efforts at times, she does manage to survive toddlerhood. The same cannot be said for your sanity. Beggars can be choosers. Button. Beggars can be choosers. Oh, no, it's the word that greets you every morning. Shows stat. No, it's the word that greets you every morning, brings every day to a close during bedtime, and is heard several hundred times in between. And this particular situation seems to elicit the dreaded two-letter response more than most. Elizabeth turns her head away from the table. No, carrots yucky. Her hands are pushing against you, but you manage to pierce the outer defenses and land a spoonful of orange goop inside a fussing pink tongue target. This triumph is a brief one, as Elizabeth goes thhhpthhpthh and coats everything in a 3-foot radius with liquefied vegetable. Elizabeth smiles through the mess, clearly all too aware that once again the day is hers. It's true that Elizabeth won't waste away anytime soon, but you have to assume that she can remain healthy forever consuming nothing but goldfish crackers and chopped up hot dogs. We need gateway foods. Forget lima beans and carrots. We'll move to bananas and cinnamon applesauce. Radio button. Checked. If she spits out 20 bites, I'll be there with the 21st. Radio button. I don't know. I think that's most of what I consumed as a child. Radio button. I lead by example, and take a bite to myself. Radio button. Next button. Your hope is that by liberally applying foods with actual flavor, Elizabeth can start to lose her deep-seated disdain for those odious plastic jars. Then, once the Trojan horse of sweetness lures her into complacency, you reintroduce the hard stuff. Not much changes over the next few days, with your victories still few and the losses quite graphic in their aftermath. You can't help but wonder if Jackson Pollock got his inspiration from watching someone try to feed a toddler pureed prunes. The breakthrough, or at least a breakthrough, comes when you least expect it. While both of you are watching a couple of nursery rhyme videos online, an ad pops up for a local restaurant chain. Elizabeth points at the screen and says, "Yummy." It's safe to say that whatever food you expected your child to grant such a rare honorific, it wasn't going to be crispy fried tofu. The ad is for the popular Chinese restaurant over by the open-air mall. Walk this way. Chinese isn't a common menu item at your house. But after a reaction like that, you wonder if it might be time to call in an order. Hey, if Elizabeth is excited about a food that isn't candy, I can choke down some soggy noodles. Radio button. Checked. Only thing better than getting Elizabeth to try something new is having some crab rangoon and wonton soup. Let's order. Radio. I'm all for trying new things, but all that salt and MSG isn't good for a child's digestive system. She'll be fine without it. Radio but. Next button. You've never been overly fond of Chinese. It seems somehow both too dense and too insubstantial at the same time. Still, in order to expand Elizabeth's culinary horizons, you're willing to fall on this teriyaki-covered sword. You look up the menu online, trying to find the least offensive option. They probably have good chicken wings, right? Reminders, now, dismiss. You've never been overly. The next day, you get Elizabeth after work and swing by the Chinese place to pick up your carry-out order. Her eyes pop at the ostentatious decorations around the restaurant, and you have to restrain her from trying to pick up the fragile-looking dragon sculpture on the floor. The woman at the front desk raises an eyebrow as they bring out your order of crispy fried tofu, crab rangoon, lo mein noodles and lemon pepper chicken wings with French fries. But just because you want Elizabeth to have the full Chinese experience doesn't mean you wish to inflict the same upon yourself. Once you're back home, you have a hard time getting both Elizabeth and the food inside without dropping something, but you manage. You arrange everything on the table and put Elizabeth in her high chair. She squeals with delight when you open up the container containing the tofu, looking just like it did in the advertisement. The moment of truth is here. Button. The year draws to a close. Button. Elizabeth, it might be absurd, but you're actually a trifle anxious as to what will happen next. She lifts up a chunk of tofu, ponders it, and looks poised to toss it onto the floor for a single heart-stopping moment. But she doesn't. Instead, your child, pickiest of all the picky eaters, gleefully chomps the first bite of tofu. And the second, and the third, and before long is a little upset that it has run out. Elizabeth shows similar excitement for the crab rangoon, though she seems less impressed with lo mein noodles as a food and as a plaything. Worms, she shouts as she wiggles one at you while you cringe in mock horror. It's the most fun both of you have had at the dinner table in a long time. It also marks a subtle shift in how Elizabeth approaches mealtimes. She still gives you a big raspberry whenever you try to feed her, say, pureed raspberries. But new foods are not immediately held in disdain, and after plenty of experimentation, her repertoire of accepted dishes is, almost, downright varied in scope. The year draws to a close. Button. Next button. Tiffany's infectious laugh echoes from the phone speaker. The party was a blast. I know Erica had fun, seeing as how she promptly came home and crashed that afternoon. If it gets Erica a 2-hour nap, perhaps Elizabeth should have a birthday next week too, eh? Hey, sounds good, as long as you're footing the bill for it. But be warned that much ice cream gets pretty costly. Radio button. Checked. Perhaps not. Once a year is quite sufficient, thanks. Radio button. Unchecked. Let's do it. I just want to rock and roll all night and nap through every day. Radio button. Unchecked. Next button. Next chapter button. You can almost see Tiffany nodding on the other end of the line. True enough. Perhaps we'll scratch the party redo after all. I'll talk to you later, Evie. Have a good night. Hope your little monster sleeps through it. The call disconnects, and you get ready for bed yourself. It was indeed quite a party, and you know part of the reason Elizabeth enjoyed it was her little buddy Erica being there. Everything's better when you have someone to talk to about it. Especially parenting. Next chapter, button. Year 2, why did you teach her to talk, exactly? I did it all for the upvotes, button. I did it all for the upvote. Elizabeth has just been put down for the night, which means you finally get a few minutes to yourself. So naturally, you celebrate being able to finally hear your own thoughts by going online and ingesting the torrent of thoughts from others on social media. After 10 minutes or so of casually scrolling through political screeds, inexplicable photos of food, and the usual crop of stealthy advertising posts, you come across a video posted by a friend from high school. She has a child who looks to be about the same age as Elizabeth, and her little one apparently saw a baby panda at the zoo for the first time today and flipped out, practically screaming, "Mama, it's a tiny bear, look at the tiny bear," and other such 2-year-old remarks. The exponential effect of a cute child raving about a cute panda has resulted in a fair bit of attention. Your friend only has a few dozen followers, yet the post has been shared several hundred times. You've never seen someone you know get that much attention with anything they said or did online, especially yourself. What is your normal policy regarding what you post online? I share everything Elizabeth does. I'm just so proud of my little one that I want the world to know. Radio button, checked. I put a few pictures and stories up, but try to avoid anything overly personal or humiliating for Elizabeth. Radio button, unchecked. Checked. I post stories about Elizabeth, but tend to avoid pictures or videos. Never know who might be out there. Radio button, no one online even knows I have a child. Radio button, what I post. No, you misunderstand. I'm just here for the posts of others. Lurkers of the world unite. Radio button, next, button. After all, your child will be online herself one day, though not too soon, hopefully, and you don't want her to be retroactively mortified at everything Mama shared for the world to see. Your trickle of kitty content still ensures you have a fair amount of followers who crave all things cute and cuddly. A closer look shows that your former acquaintance's sudden surge in online popularity is no accident. Her video is tied to a contest post from WeView, a news outlet that specializes in feel-good stories of the clickbait variety. You go to the parent post and are greeted with a giant headline in a very aggressive font. Show us what you got. The top 10 clips with the most votes from our WeViewers Choice contest will win $2,500 each and be a featured video of the day. There's tons of other prizes for participating, so get out there and share your story. You consider whether it would be worth it to make a submission. It sounds a trifle obnoxious, but the potential rewards cannot be denied. It could be worthwhile, given the money involved. Radio button, checked. A featured video? It would be great to get that kind of exposure. Radio button, unchecked. 2 of 4. Checked. I'm not sure. WeView is really obnoxious. Why support them? Radio button. It feels somewhat slimy to do this when Elizabeth can't even agree to it. Radio button. Next, button. Your online profile would get a huge boost from that kind of publicity. Who knows what it could lead to? It sounds outlandish to consider this a big break of sorts for Elizabeth, or you, for that matter, but it certainly happened to plenty of other people. Over the next couple of days, your mind drifts back to the contest several times. You finally have an epiphany on Friday night regarding how to handle it. I'll send the cutest video I have on my phone, the day Elizabeth went to the pet store. Radio button, check. Everyone loves to laugh, so I'll send my funniest video, Elizabeth playing as Princess Pea Pants. Radio button, unchecked. Checked. In order to maximize our chances, I think the best bet is to create the optimal unplanned moment video. Radio button, unchecked. My submission will consist of me telling them, in extensive detail, what I think of their stupid website. Radio button, submission? The only thing I'm making today is a sandwich. My epiphany is that this contest is a waste of time. Radio button, next, button. To this day, you still don't know what possessed Elizabeth to place a diaper on her head and begin marching around, tonelessly singing "I Princess Pea Pants, la-dee-la." At least it was a clean diaper, but the internet populace doesn't necessarily need to know that. It's embarrassing, sure, but in this instance it's actually beneficial to have a child that's 2 years old, and thus has no concept of shame. You post your video, and encourage those following you on various apps and websites to vote it up and share the link around. Slowly but surely, your video begins to push up the ranks. Tempted by the possibility of actually getting a chance at the big money, you keep pushing hard on every available platform for people to vote. You go from the top 500, to the top 100, to the top 50. The results are in, button. Unfortunately, you seem to hit a wall after cracking the top 50, either due to not having enough people talking you up or your video just not being distinct enough. By the time the contest ends, you've received thousands of votes but still remain just outside the top 25, and nowhere near the 10 big money makers. The company did promise lots of other prizes for participants, however, and as you're stewing about your defeat you receive an email from WeView with a welcome surprise. Apparently, as a top 50 clip, your video will still be featured on the site in a smaller capacity, and you receive $100 worth of credit at the WeView online store. Looks like just about everyone in your life is getting a t-shirt or coffee mug with that clumsy panda on it for Christmas. Your widespread exposure does come at a cost, though. Several people post rather nasty comments about you exploiting a helpless child just to sell out for a chance at a little attention and a little money. It stings a bit, since there is some truth to these barbs. But you wish you could live such a life of privilege that $2 grand qualified as just being a little money. Elizabeth, oblivious to all of the hullabaloo around the contest, nearly says I funny when watching the clip of herself online. You give her a hug and say, "You sure are, little one." A few of my favorite things, button. When Elizabeth was little, pretty much anything was a perfectly acceptable toy. A rattle, a ball, a box, your shoes, even her own toes. Now that your child has reached the lofty age of 2, however, she has become much more discriminating. And lately, there's been a running theme throughout her requests for new playthings, babies. Mama, look at baby stuffs, is something you hear frequently, whether it's at the store or just when Elizabeth sees toy ads while you're browsing online. What Elizabeth lacks in grammatical accuracy, she certainly makes up for in single-minded determination. You bought your little one a couple of simple playsets related to the new flavor of the month, and she has already spent quite a bit of time with them. Which led to the memorable moment when Elizabeth lost her tiny cootie she McPoopsie doll. Suffice to say, things got very real very fast, and you were forced to resolve the crisis. We tore the house apart looking for the missing toy. Radio button. Checked. What? We bought a replacement toy right away. Radio button. I told Elizabeth, as kindly as possible, that this is why we can't have nice things. Radio button. Unchecked. Next. Button. Unchecked. It took far longer than you would ever admit, even to your friend Tiffany, and longer still to clean up the mess generated by the haphazard search. But you finally found the culprit hiding in the laundry hamper under a pile of dirty clothes. Elizabeth insisted she had no idea how it got there, and by this point you were too tired of the issue to press for further details. Reuniting her with her bestest best toy made her so happy, it might even have been worth the massive manhunt involved. Elizabeth is currently playing with the toy at the center of that maelstrom of drama, and you can't help but feel a twinge of annoyance every time you look at it now. Morning, noon, and night, Elizabeth struggles to care about anything not related to babies. Those are the books she asks to hear in the morning, the t-shirts she wears at night, and the toys you trip over multiple times a day. In fact, the whole obsession with babies has you wondering if you need to intervene. I don't see a need to make a big deal over it. She'll probably move on to something else by next week. Radio button. Check. Perhaps I can gently try to get her interested in something else. Radio button. You kidding? I love seeing Elizabeth so passionate about something. Radio button. Unchecked. 3 of 3. Next. Button. Tiffany remarks about her child's monomania during a playdate with Erica where Elizabeth has already deployed her small army of babies. So, I guess Elizabeth really likes babies, huh? You respond, perhaps a bit too defensively. She does. I mean, all kids need a hobby, right? Tiffany holds up her hands. Hey, I went through something similar with Erica. Remember the few months where she didn't go anywhere without at least 3 plastic snakes? Just let them have fun with it, and when it feels like you can't talk about babies for one more minute, well, I don't have any good advice for that. Just go that one more minute, and then go the next. Both of you chuckle at this. That's what it always comes down to, after all. You can't pretend that the constant talk about babies gets any less grating, but seeing how it makes Elizabeth smile does make it worthwhile. The battle for bathroom supremacy, button. Diapers. Once it was cute, a bonding experience as you snapped a fresh Pampers in place around Elizabeth's tiny rump while Dawn leaked through the window. But that was a very long time ago. Now, the only thing bigger than the cost per box of the disposable swaddlings is the poops your growing offspring deposits into them. You can tell it's getting close to the time for that ultimate coming-of-age experience, graduating to the big girl potty. You remark as such to your friend Tiffany on the phone, shortly after Elizabeth has gone to bed. I'm telling you, it was a level 7 code brown tonight. I might be violating the Geneva Convention just by throwing the diaper in the trash can outside. She chuckles. Yeah, this job literally stinks sometimes. Erica getting out of diapers was honestly a more exciting experience than her actual conception. There's an inaudible grumble from her husband in the background. You can tell if this is in protest or agreement. It's hard not to envy your friend. Despite Erica only being 3 months older than Elizabeth, she's been using the toilet for almost half a year. One day, Erica was in diapers. A couple weeks later she was in underpants. Of course, a rug had also been replaced in their front hall, but that seems like a small price to pay at this point. What do you want to ask Tiffany about the toilet training process? So, how many accidents should I be looking out for when I finally light up this dumpster fire? Radio button. What did you use to motivate Erica to sit on it? Radio button. Checked. What prompted her to actually get interested in the first place? Next button. Tiffany laughs. Like so many problems in life, this one was solved by a liberal application of candy. The bargaining power of chocolate cannot be underestimated. You hope this answer helps with a mystery that has plagued you for some time. Your own practice potty has lain fallow ever since Elizabeth received it at her 2nd birthday party. No amount of coaxing has gotten her to sit on it for longer than a second or two, and nowadays the only thing touching it is a small brown spider spinning a web inside the plastic bowl. Once the conversation runs its natural course, you hang up and stare at the dusty simulated toilet on your bathroom rug, thinking long and hard about your next plan of attack for this issue. No more Ms. Nice Mama. Elizabeth is going to sit on this accursed thing until something drops. Radio button. Checked. I think Tiffany's blatant bribery could prove a valid tactic. Radio button. Unchecked. Checked. There's no sense dealing with this right now. She'll go when she's good and ready. Radio button. Peer pressure is underrated as a teaching tool. I'll plan a playdate with Erica to highlight the virtues of a diaperless life. Radio next button. Large bag of chocolate peanut butter cups, $5. Potentially never changing a diaper again in your natural born life, priceless. When you ask Elizabeth not just to sit on the toilet, but remain there until something happens, you encounter a fair amount of resistance. But the moment that crinkly bag of sugary goodness appears, her resolve crumbles. Granted, it still takes a bit of cajoling to convince her to remain there throughout, but eventually, you're rewarded with a dirty practice toilet and a smiling, chocolate-smeared face beaming up at you. You're not entirely sure what will happen when the candies run out, however. Now you're left with the choice of what to do with your remaining diapers and wipes. I donate them to a shelter, radio button. I sell them on Facebook to an expecting mother, radio button, unchecked. I hold on to them, just in case, radio button, next, button. Now, it gives you great satisfaction to gather up and then remove all the diaper-related paraphernalia from the house. Elizabeth trots beside you happily, waving at the large cardboard box in your arms and saying, bye-bye, baby pants. Of course, you've only replaced the diapers with an equally large and expensive box of pull-ups to cover nocturnal emissions. But it's forward progress, no matter which way you slice it. The year draws to a close, button. There was a time, not so long ago, when you had no choice but to guess what Elizabeth was thinking. She could point, grunt, and most certainly she could cry, but that was about as much help as you received during that endless game of charades. Now Elizabeth is talking so much, and so well, that the issue is less about finding out what she wants and more about how to find the off switch for those times when the constant chatter threatens your last shred of sanity. But as you watch your new 3-year-old sleeping in her highly prized big kid bed, you consider that as hard as it can be dealing with the chatterbox, it's still great to learn about what she's thinking and feeling. Elizabeth isn't quite a person yet, but she's coming along nicely. Next chapter, button. Year 3, from Toddler to Terror. Just playing around, button. Just playing around. Not every memorable instance in your child's life involves big, important events. Sometimes the things that stick with you the longest are the everyday moments, notable only for their perfectly ordinary nature. One such time occurs on a lazy Sunday afternoon when Elizabeth is 3. She is fed, rested, and full of energy, and for once there's nowhere to go and nothing urgent to accomplish. The day still stretches out before you, full of possibilities. What will you do? We play a board game, radio button. We go outside and play, radio button, unchecked. I ask her what she wants to do, radio. I look in my handy-dandy educational activity book for some suggestions, radio. We cuddle up together on the couch and watch some TV, radio. I read to her as much as she wants, radio. I give her some space to play with her toys, radio. We get some chores done, radio. Next, button. You can't afford anything huge and elaborate, but you do have a simple swing set in the yard, and it's more than enough to keep Elizabeth occupied, especially when combined with games of chase, hide and seek, and Simon Says led by Mama. You stay out for over an hour before coming inside, sweaty and ready to crash for a bit. Screen recording in progress, 8:44 a.m. You can't afford. The day still stretches out before you, full of possibilities. What will you do? We play a board game, radio. We go outside and I ask her what she wants to do, radio. But I look in my handy-dandy educational act. We cuddle up together on it. I read to her as much as she wants. I give her some space to play with her toys, radio button. Checked. We get some chores done. Next, button. I read. Being a little person means spending a great deal of time being subjected to the whim of your parental overlord. Going hither and yon without much say in the matter. You can think of no better way to celebrate a day free of responsibility than to let Elizabeth have a chance to really be in the driver's seat for a few minutes. You sit and watch, marveling at how fascinating the stories are that a 3-year-old mind can conceive for the interactions of a few simple figurines. Eventually, Elizabeth does tire of the solo experience and turns to you. What we do now, Mama? The day still stretches out before you, full of possibilities. What will you do? We play a board game, radio button, check. We go outside and play. I ask her what she wants to do, I look in my handy-dandy educate. We cuddle up together on the couch. I read to her as much as she wants. I give her some space to we get some chores done. Checked. Next, button. A life of working and solo parenting has not exactly left you a great deal of free time for home maintenance or cleaning, and you always feel like you're playing catch-up. If there's free hours today, you fully intend for at least some of them to be spent prettying up the place. Elizabeth doth protest, but not too much, and both of you have some fun chatting while you vacuum the floor and she follows behind with her pretend vacuum. It feels good to accomplish something meaningful with the day, even if it sacrificed a bit of playtime. The day draws to a close. What will you do with the little bit of time remaining? I'll let Elizabeth choose what we should have for dinner, and help make it too. Radio button, checked. Who says it's drawing to a close? I'm letting Elizabeth stay up late, just this once. Radio button. We order in some food and talk for a bit. Radio, next, button. Premature education. Premature education. But I want waffles is the reply you get, and frankly it sounds pretty good to you two after a long day of playing. She does make a bit of a mess with the batter, but she clearly enjoys being part of the process. The meal is sticky and sweet, and by the end of it, the same could be said for Elizabeth. Of course, all days eventually end, no matter how much you may wish they didn't. By the time your revels are done, Elizabeth is so tired you scoop her up and carry her to bed on your shoulder, like you did when she was a baby. You tuck her into the covers, and before you go, you ask Elizabeth, what was your favorite thing today? She yawns loudly, rolls over, and mumbles, all. You smile, shut off the lights, and she falls asleep. Premature education, button. Next, button. Lately, it seems that preschool has been coming up more and more often in your life. Erica is doing it. Several other kids from the library group have also started enrolling in various academies in your area. The unintended peer pressure has you wondering if it's time for Elizabeth to take the preschool plunge. Thus far, your educational efforts with Elizabeth have involved rigorous flashcard drills, radio button, checked. Saturday trips to the museum, radio button, unchecked. Loads of public television, radio button. Interactive apps galore, radio button, unchecked. 4 of 4. Next, button. And trust me, there's no shortage of M, button. And trust, nothing more is said about. Elizabeth gets a little squirmy when you break out the thick sheaf of cards. She definitely prefers the ones with animals over plain letters and numbers, too. But repetition is powerful, and they've had an undeniably positive impact. Elizabeth even brings up the subject of schooling herself one day, as you're returning home from a library playtime. I go to school, Mama. You're taken a bit off guard, as she's never mentioned it before. I don't really know, sweetheart. Do you want to go to school? A little head nods up and down. I try it. Nothing more is said about the matter, but it rattles around in your mind the rest of the day. After Elizabeth is asleep for the night, you decide to do some research about potential school options. And trust me, there's no shortage of M, button. After a couple of hours going over an endless array of cheerful websites, social media reviews, and your own mildly depressing bank statements, you've narrowed it down to a few possibilities in your area. First, there's the tuition-free Head Start preschool. The teachers are underpaid, and you'll be lucky if there's one adult per 8 or 9 kids, but the price is certainly right. If you want to go private, there's Spring Steps, the long-running private establishment not far from your home. It's modest in price, and all of their teachers have degrees. Some people do mention class size as a potential issue at this place as well, however. Pathways is held up as the gold standard by many, both because of its results and because you may need to uncover a rich vein of the precious metal in order to afford it. Billed as a gentle guiding hand for tomorrow's future, it's all about learning without boundaries or rigid structure. It's exclusive, full of cutting-edge resources, and you're about 85% sure you can swing it, as long as you work copious amounts of overtime and drop your morning coffee run in favor of the pallid swill they serve at work. However, there's always another option, none of the above. There's no law that says Elizabeth has to be in preschool, and you can always take care of teaching her yourself. That's how it's been up to this point, after all. What preschool seems best for Elizabeth? The Head Start government fund, Spring Steps, the private preschool, Pathways, the alternative. Checked. No school needed, no school needed at all. Next, button. It's not her party. She'll cry anyhow. It's not her party. The school's motto of free to be, you and me, while not very original, is at least accurate. The independently driven learning structure allows Elizabeth to explore and grow at her own pace. There are plenty of times where you question exactly why you're signing over a significant percentage of your paycheck for them to let your little one grow by drawing meaningless doodles for an hour or more at a time. But as time goes by, you really do see her start to make significant strides in all sorts of unexpected ways. It's undeniably helpful for her social skills, as well. Within a couple of months, Elizabeth has a group of friends from the school, some of which you see intermittently outside of it. As rewarding as it is watching Elizabeth grow and learn, you realize that this was just the trailer. In a couple of years, you're going to have to contend with the feature presentation, actual school. It's not her party. She'll cry anyhow. Button. Next, button. Details, back button, shows. Come on, Elizabeth, you need to finish on the potty or we are going to be late for Erica's birthday. A tiny voice echoes from the bathroom. I'm coming, Mama. There's a flush, a flurry of activity, and then your small sidekick emerges, wiping her hands on her clothes. Normally, you would point out that this is what you have towels for, but there's no time. Erica is having her 4th birthday party at the library's common room, and it starts in just a few minutes. What present are you bringing your daughter's little friend? A carefully wrapped and somewhat pricey plush snake radio button. Check. A carefully wrapped and a gift bag. A plastic grocery bag with one of Elizabeth's less popular toys crammed inside. Next button. Come on, Elizabeth, you need to finish on the potty or we are going. Next button. The Erica isn't as obsessed with serpents as she used to be, but hopefully it will still be a winner when she sees this 5-foot-long velveteen beauty coiled inside the box. You had to set Elizabeth down in front of the television for 30 minutes to get the presents wrapping and bow. Jewist. Right, but you hope that your friend Tiffany will appreciate the effort even if Erica doesn't. With present and progeny in tow, you arrive at Erica's party somewhere between fashionably late and egregiously late. Tiffany doesn't seem to notice and gives both of you a warm greeting. Hey, guys, it's so good to see you. Erica is over at the art station we set up, finger painting. There's also a reading station, a jumping station, and a quiet station where parents can go to hear themselves think. She gives you a knowing smile with that last one. Where do you go first? The reading station, anything to promote Elizabeth loving books. Radio button, checked. The art station, the jumping station, the quiet, next, button. Both of you settle into an oversized beanbag chair and read everything within reach. Around the time the caterpillar has eaten through 4 oranges for the 5th time, you see Tiffany stand up over at the art station. All right everyone, it's time to sing to our little Erica and cut the cake, so I hope everyone brought their singing voice. Tiffany's husband reaches into a bag and pulls out an enormous inflatable microphone, causing a ripple of giggles from the under 5 section of the audience. Everyone begins to drift over to the cake, and Elizabeth pulls on your arm. Come on, Mama, you both watch as Erica struggles mightily to extinguish the flame from 4 candles. You take a moment to pray that Erica isn't sick, judging by the amount of spittle that she just launched onto the cake your child will soon be eating. After everyone is good and sugared up, it's time for presents. Elizabeth is near the front of the group, watching with hungry eyes as her friend begins to unwrap the first package. By the time she's up to the third present from the pile, your little one is beginning to vibrate with pent-up energy. I reach out to hold her hand. Radio button. Checked. I put a hand on her shoulder. Radio button. Unchecked. Checked. I guide Elizabeth further away from the epicenter of consumer delights. Radio button. Next. Button. Next. Elizabeth ducks away from your arm and makes a break for Erica's pile of presents. Before you can stop her, Elizabeth bolts over to Erica and begins helping her rip into the next present. Both Tiffany and Erica have matching expressions of bewilderment as your progeny shouts, "I help open too." Embarrassment squirms through your belly as you try to determine how to defuse this before it gets even worse. I gently but firmly remind Elizabeth whose party this is. Radio button. Checked. I take Elizabeth to the side and ready the riot act. Radio button. I physically remove my child from this spot, this party, and this building. Next. Button. As Erica is watching her friend provide more unwanted assistance in opening the next gift, you take your child's hand in a firm grip and pull her away from the pile of loot. You sit her down in a chair, then force yourself into one beside her, despite the lack of any seating options able to accommodate an adult's frame. From your relatively level vantage point, you can see the tears beginning to glisten in Elizabeth's eyes. Despite your little one's despair, you continue with the point that must be made as you whisper to her. Despite your little one's despair, you continue with the point that must be made as you whisper to her. Whose party is this, Elizabeth? She almost shouts back. Mine, Elizabeth's party. You stare daggers at the child. Try again. Whose party? Elizabeth whispers this time, almost inaudible. My party. You say nothing, then shake your head. Her lip quivers as she caves. It's Erica's party. Success, button. You wrap the child in a hug, despite her anger. Little arms circle around you and squeeze with desperate strength for a moment before unclenching. You look her in the eye and smile. That's right, kid. It'll be your birthday again before you know it. But this is Erica's day, and you need to be sweet. You wouldn't want her to rip into your presents, would you? A look of abject horror flips across Elizabeth's features, then she shakes her head furiously from side to side. Clearly, that one hit close to home. Control Center. Recognize. Alarm. Selected.